everybody. Hope you're having a great start to your week. Happy Monday. Good to have you here. Before we get started, let us know who you are and where you're from in the chat. We always like to see who's with us here live and where you're all from. Also, before we dive into anything, we will be taking questions live here with my special guest, who I'll introduce in just a moment. So if you have questions, write them down for us in the chat, and we'll go through as many of these as we can live here on this live stream. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about the top 5 absolutely must know music theory concepts for guitar players. So music theory is big. It's a huge category, and there's a lot of different stuff that you could learn that maybe we should learn. But I thought I'd bring in the absolute leading expert on music theory for guitar, the number one person that I know in the world on this topic. I thought I'd bring him in, and I'll ask him to share with you his perspective on what does he think are at least the 5 things you have to know and you should know well. And of course, I'm talking about my good friend, long time friend, Dr. Tommaso Zillio is our guest today. Welcome, Tommaso.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Thomas.
Hi. Okay. So, doctor, no matter what kind of guitar player people want to be, there are some crucial music theory concepts that I think people really need to know. And maybe it differs depending upon what someone's particular goals are or what they want to do with guitar playing or music. So, but maybe if you want to speak to that, and I'll just let you run through what you think are the absolute most essential things.
The first thing is knowing what not to do, actually. Because lots of people are like, I want to study music theory, I want to learn something, and they go and start learning how to read music. Don't do that. Okay. Some people do need to learn to read music, maybe not immediately. Okay. And some people actually never need it because for the kind of music they do, for the kind of situations they're in, for the gigs they play, the concerts, whatever, they just don't need it. So the first thing is, don't go immediately and learn how to read music. Don't go and do what the music theory 101 books tell you to do, because that's good for academic music theory. If you want to go that direction, great for you. But if you want to actually make music, that would not be the right thing to do. Okay. Not that there is anything wrong with academic music theory per se. It's just that they typically explain things in a different order and not exactly the most user-friendly order. Okay, so I would just go completely in a different way if you want to make music. But that's the first thing. Okay, so just don't rush. Don't go grab a book on music theory and do everything that is there. Probably, again, not the best idea. You're gonna get confused. There's missing information. You're gonna go on a wild goose chase on learning how to read, learning out a number of other things, and then you realize that, hey, how do I apply this stuff on guitar? You don't. So, and that's why, by the way, most people think that music theory is completely useless, or like Hendrix did not know music theory. Hendrix knew his music theory. He was a session player. I mean, if you're a session player, you need to know how to read music and stuff like that. But at the same time, it is perfectly true that in his daily life, as famous guitar player Jimi Hendrix, he wasn't using that much of that academic music theory for the music he became famous for. He was using music theory, but not that kind of music theory. So, what is the first? We have 5 concepts essentially we want to learn. Okay, actually, the first concept is what I call a meta concept. You guys will forgive me here, but the first concept is knowing exactly what music theory is. And it's this. Music theory is not a bunch of information. It's not a set of rules. It's not a way to judge if something you write or somebody else write is good or not or correct. Music theory is not just a theory. I don't know why we call it theory, because at the beginning when we were teaching this stuff, we just called it music. Okay, music theory, it's actually a training system. Okay, and the idea is that you do those things in this order, and you become a better musician. Okay? you are able to hear what other people are playing. You're able to know what other people are playing. You're able to hear the ideas in your mind. You're able to translate them on the instrument. And whenever you get stuck, you have a toolbox, okay? There's some mental tools you learn to get you out of that rut and to get on with the song, with improvisation, with the composition, etc. Okay, so music theory is something in between a toolbox, a recipe book, and a training system. Okay, but it's mostly a training system. That's the first thing, because otherwise people start thinking, okay, so they tell me to play the major scale. I don't like the sound of the major scale. So should I learn it or not? Well, guess what? I don't like the sound of the major scale. Okay. But the major scale helps you. It's kind of a training wheels to get to more complex scales. Okay. And that's the way, that's the spirit in which you should learn these things. Not learn the little thing and then think you apply it in real life exactly as it is. Otherwise, you don't learn anything, because let's face it, how many people do like the major scale and all the other scales and all the other chords, etc.? There's always something you don't like. Okay, there's always something like that's more my sound, that's more not my sound, which is good to know and good to take note on it, so you know what you want to learn and what you don't want to learn and what you want to remember. But take it as a training system. Okay, so now here's the thing I want you to have in mind. Let's say you go to the gym. Okay, you go to the gym every day because you want to become stronger. Okay, so that's what you do. You go to the gym and you lift weight. You sit down on the bench and start bench pressing. Okay, then somebody comes in and tells you, why are you doing that? You're never going to do that movement in real life. Tell you what, guys, he's perfectly right. Whenever in real life have you bench press something, right? If you want to move furniture, okay, you want to move the furniture, if you want to move that couch, okay, are you going to bench press it? Are you going to go under the couch and bench press it? No, you're not going to. But bench pressing is a great exercise to isolate your pecs, okay, and to do a specific kind of movement and to make those muscles stronger. And together with other exercises, make all your other muscles stronger, okay? So you do different kind of exercises to make all your muscles stronger, to develop a specific kind of coordination and make your joints stronger, everything you want, okay? So you go to the gym, you do a number of movements that have nothing to do with stuff you actually do in real life, okay? Then, whenever it's time to move furniture, you are strong enough to do it, even if you've never done those specific movements before, because you are stronger. Music theory works the exact same way. You are studying a number of situations, scales, chords, and then later harmony, counterpoint, voice leading, etc. Maybe none of that sounds like you want to, but then later you go see the music you're playing and you're like, oh, now I have more ideas. Now somehow you can hear it and the stuff flows better from you. You don't even realize it's connected to that. You are just musically stronger. Thomas?
Great point here. And I really love the bench press analogy. And apparently our friend here does as well. I love good analogies. Yeah, what I think is great about that analogy that you gave is that the reason why, or one of the reasons why you would do bench press, even though it's not a move that you're likely to do directly in real life, is because the bench press lift is something that maximizes the strength and future usefulness of being able to push. So it's done in a way that it's designed in a way to maximize the building of the strength of those sets of muscles. And just like certain things you would do in music theory, or even technical exercises, it may help if the exercise is designed right to maximize the usefulness of learning the information or applying it or mastering it. So I thought that was a fantastic analogy there. And before I stop talking and let you take over again, did I hear you say you do not like the sound of the major scale?
Well, and it's not the greatest scale.
I think the internet's going to blow up. I'm surprised the chat hasn't blown up already. Maybe they missed it. All right, please continue.
You can write good music in the major scale.
Sure.
Okay, I'm not saying no. You can. But it's a touch overused. Let me put it that way. Okay.
Sure, you hear it
It's
everywhere all the
literally
time.
the most used scale in the history of music. I mean, there must be something good, and there's been great music written on it. But okay.
Oh, the major scale lovers hate mail is coming your way. It's coming. I'm not encouraging anybody to send them hate mail, but I know it's coming.
Oh yeah, it would not be the worst we had, no? Every time we do this live stream and we say what we like and we don't like, we're gonna get that, right? So it's just what it is. There's plenty of other things I don't like. Well, actually, one day we should do a live stream all the stuff we don't like.
Oh,
Okay,
that would be long. That could. I mean, just me talking alone would be here a long time.
Yes. But anyway, and people are like, play it from the 5th degree. I have comments like, play it from the 5th degree. Okay, but then that's another scale. That's a different scale. If you play it from the 5th degree, and again,
now we're Mixolydian, yeah.
Exactly, it's a Mixolydian scale. So yes, thank you. I mean, it's if we start taking all the modes, then yes, some of the modes sounds amazing. It's not, but it's not the major scale anymore. It doesn't sound major. I mean, the natural minor scale is a mode of the major scale, and the minor is not major. I mean, whatever you want to say, that's what it is. But anyway, so that would be the first thing. Remember what music theory is. Otherwise, nothing makes sense. Otherwise, every time somebody explains you something or you learn something new, nothing makes sense to you. Okay. But I mean, if you're a blues player, you don't have to learn only blues theory. You can learn any kind of theory and grab the idea and bring them there. If you're a jazz player, same deal. If you're a classical player, same deal. If you play rock, country, fusion, whatever, just learn whatever you can. Okay. And again, there is a specific order, there are specific ideas, all good. But think of it as an exercise. Think of it as something you do to get stronger. Think of it as a little isolation box that exercises a specific muscle in your brain. Okay, just like bench press is. So that's the first important idea in music theory. Somehow everybody fails to explain you because they just tell you learn all these and be done with it. Now that's important. The right mindset is important. Otherwise, you do everything wrong. That's the first thing. The second principle is what I call the limitation principle. The idea is this. The chromatic scale, okay, it's made of 12 notes. You guys know that. No, I mean, it's... Okay, from C to C or whatever, you have 12 notes available. But why 12? Couldn't we play also all the notes in between? I mean, could I play C and there's something in between? C and C sharp, then C sharp, then something in between C and sharp and D, then... Yes. Yeah. Don't quote me on that. Okay, because it sounds sorry. Could you? Yeah, of course you could. There are, by the way, styles of music where you actually do that. You have 24 notes. Okay. There are some styles of music where you have 31 notes, because with 31, something interesting happened. Could you have less? Absolutely, you could have less. Okay. So, could you have all the pitches? Could you just play like a violin or a cello and have everything? So you have literally a continuous of pitches in between every single note. You could. But that would be difficult to manage, right? I mean, just imagine having 100 notes or 200 notes. You don't even have enough letters to all those. You'll have to give them different kind of names or something. And just imagine doing chords with those. Ugh. So, one of the things we do in music theory, it's called the limitation principle. Okay, we limit ourselves to a certain set of something, set of notes, set of rhythms, set of speeds, sets of timbres, sets of whatever. We don't go completely haywire. We don't go completely with complete freedom on anything because it's too much for human brains to manage. And it doesn't really even sound that good. So generally, we choose limitations. So for instance, what is a scale? It's a choice of usually 7 notes out of the 12 standard notes of the chromatic scale. So we just limit ourselves to those 7 notes to compose our piece. And again, it's not a rule, it's just something we do. And if any moment you feel the need to step out of those scales and use some other notes, you absolutely can. Okay? Again, because it's not a rule. It's just an intention, if you want, something like, I'm going to compose, but I'm not going to use all the notes. Because when I compose with less notes, it's easier to manage, it's easier to sound good, and it has a specific sound I know already, and it has a specific set of emotions that I can evoke using those notes. The major scale sounds generally happy. The minor scale sounds generally sad. So by making the choice of those notes out of the 12 notes that we have and choosing those 7 notes of the major scale or those 7 notes of the minor scale, we already steered our composition toward a specific emotion or another. Okay? Now, people like to say that, I like to express all these concepts saying less is more. That phrase has absolutely no meaning. Okay? Because, as you notice, there is nothing attached to that less. Less of what? More of what? That phrase has absolutely no meaning because it could be perfectly true or perfectly false, depending on what you apply it. Okay? I just hate when people say that. Because it depends. Okay? It also depends on how much you want to have. So, for instance, if you are writing a blues solo, you could use any number of notes. It's very common to say less is more, and it is I would advise anybody to say, well, why don't I try writing a solo with 3 or 4 notes? So pick 3 or 4 notes and really sit down a few minutes, play the backing track over and over, and see how many ideas you can have only with those 3 or 4 notes. That's great. But that's an exercise. Okay? You limit yourself so you can get stronger on those 4 notes. Or you can get stronger with 4 notes, because later I'm going to change the notes, try again, etc. But when you actually play in real life, that kind of limitation can stifle you, okay? Because you may need another note to express the feeling you want, okay? It is interesting that people like blues players say less is more, because you can use literally any of the 12 notes on a blues solo and make it sound good, okay? And indeed, if you see what is available on every chord of a blues, you end up easily with a 9-note scale, okay? Just mix major pentatonic and minor pentatonic and you see what I'm meaning, okay? Plus major pentatonic plus minor pentatonic plus the diminished fifth, which is the blues note or whatever you want to call it, it's a 9-note scale. Less is more, seriously. When classical player use 7 notes and you use 9, you are going to tell me less is more, okay? If they work, great. So the point here is that you have to accept that there is a limitation, because you cannot manage mentally 300 notes. So you're going to start with the 12 and maybe scale down to 5 of the pentatonic or the 7 of the diatonic scale or anything else. Point is, you decide the limitation. That's the point. But there is a limitation, and you need to know that. And you need to accept that and work inside the boundaries. And then whenever you are pushing on the boundaries, you know that you're exiting the limitation, but you're not exiting the limitation to complete freedom. You're exiting the limitation to another set of limitations. Otherwise, you can't manage. Okay? So here's the thing. Scales, chords, pretty much everything you've heard about music theory, it's a set of limitations. And those limitations help you make music, because every limitation comes with a feeling attached. Major chord sounds happy, minor chord sounds sad, major scale the same. A specific chord sounds in a specific way. So if I'm playing a major chord, it sounds happy. Actually, you know what? Let me do that. You probably can see that. So you know what notes I'm playing, okay? It should be C sharp, but the automatic system goes with D flat. Anyway, that's an A major chord. Sounds happy. That's an A minor chord. Doesn't sound as happy. That's a diminished chord. It sounds even less happy. Okay? So when I play those chords, I am limiting the sounds that I'm playing to those. Simple as that. Okay. If I'm playing a solo over this, by playing those three notes, I am actually limiting the number of scales I can play on it, because some other scales will just simply sound bad, which I'm going to talk about that later. Okay, but you have to, everything here is a limitation. Why am I saying this? Because people are obsessed, I tell you, okay, on playing out of the box. You've heard that, right? The same people who say less is more also say play out of the box, which is like, it's just the opposite thing. Dude, what are you saying? I mean, less is more is I have more limitations. Play out of the box is have less limitation. Okay, so here's what I'm telling you. Less is more doesn't mean anything, but you establish your limitation, and those limitations create your style. Okay? Play out of the box. Don't play out of the box. Build your box, play inside it. Then if you don't like it, break the box, build another box, and play inside that. And once you've played inside a lot of boxes, you know what box you like. Everybody plays inside a box. Okay? Everybody. It doesn't matter. Jimi Hendrix plays inside the box. Okay, his box. He made his own box. I'm not saying it wasn't original, it was. But it's still a box. Okay, I never heard Jimi Hendrix play a full chromatic scale. As far as I know. Maybe he did. Okay, but that's the thing. Okay, so second principle, the principle of limitation. Accept that there are limitations, play inside the box, but own that box. Tommaso, you have any comments on that before I go on the next one?
Yeah, actually, two. The first one is, I'll take the last one last. You talked about, playing the box and so on. And people sometimes get obsessed, exactly as you said, with trying to break outside of the box, but they haven't mastered. They haven't mastered the box at all. Now, there's nothing wrong with going outside of the box, but if we're still struggling to improvise freely with this set of notes, how is a new set of notes really going to make the overall sound a lot better? If we struggle here and now we go to a place that's more foreign to you, how is that going to really help? I mean, I'm not against breaking outside of the box or anything like that. I like playing all over the guitar, but you want to be really good at something before you abandon it completely. And so that's my first comment. And the second thing is, you said earlier, and I don't want people to take what you said to try to justify something else that people say. When you talk about music theory or music theory concepts being a set of limitations, some people might hear that and then say, aha, I knew it. Music theory just limits me. They're going to hear that and think music theory limits me. They may not understand that music theory sets you free. It doesn't limit you. You can limit yourself within what you know or don't know, or what you use or don't use, or apply and integrate or don't apply and integrate. You can limit yourself, but music theory is not limiting. I know you weren't saying that, but I want to make sure that people don't take what you said and then make a false connection. So, Dr. Zillio is saying music theory limits you in some way.
Well,
I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want to, if you agree with that statement.
See, that's the thing, because music theory does limit you, and it's a good thing, because if you have no limits, you have nothing to stand on either. Okay, that's the problem.
Yeah, yes, but the important distinction, and I know that you and I understand each other perfectly. We don't even have to talk about it. But for someone else listening, that might think, did he just contradict what Thomas just said?
No,
because he just sounds like he just said it limits you, which you did say, but you didn't mean it in the way that people are going to understand.
I'm gonna say it this way so it's clearer. When you do the bench press is limiting you. You are moving your arms only in one direction, okay? And I mean, if you wanna lay on the bench and say, I'm not gonna lift the weight vertically up, but I'm gonna lift it diagonally because I want to feel free. Well, feel free to go, but I'm gonna get hurt, okay? The bench press limits you because that's the way you grow. Okay, it limits you functionally because you want to be inside the limitation to train that specific muscle. It's a functional limitation. But nobody will say, I guess, that going to the gym limits you. Why? Because you're not looking only at the bench press. You're doing several exercises in the gym. You're doing the bench press, you're doing the squat, you're doing anything else, okay? Curls, whatever. But in music theory, every single exercise limits you. But you don't have to do one thing. You have to do a few exercises at least. And then once you put all them together, while every single one of them limits you, put it together, they expand your possibilities because they make you grow in direction you didn't expect before. That's the thing. Okay? Listen, this is like saying that your car limits you because it has 4 wheels and so you cannot tilt it. It's true. Okay? Respect to a bicycle, a car is more limiting because the bicycle can tilt left and right and the car can't. Well, ideally can't. Okay? Yes, it is limiting. It's also a feature, okay? It's much easier to drive a car and be stable than drive a bicycle or a motorcycle, for instance. Or at least it's a different set of skills. So what?
And you can go faster and go farther, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I'm not saying that a car is better than a motorcycle. I'm just saying it's a different set of limitations. You want to be free, learn to drive both. I mean, why not? Okay. My point is that not all limitations are bad. Okay. And just being against limitation just because doesn't make you better. That's what I say. Okay. Anyway, you know what actually drives the point home is that, and by the way, you told me that. You made me notice that. So I'm going to totally steal your words. Okay, Ivan.
Please do.
Yes, is that, okay, so if it's true that music theory limits you, why it is the people who don't know music theory that always write the same kind of music? Because the people who don't know music theory write the same kind of, they use major chords and minor chords and they put them together and they eventually stumble on something interesting, yes, but it's always the same. Okay, so, meh. While the people who do know music theory, maybe they don't tell you they do, but the people who do know music theory compose different kind of music. They can still compose the other kind of music, but they just have a wider spectrum, a more range. Okay, so that's the thing. Anyway, that's the second principle. Embrace limitation. They're good for you. Okay, because you embrace limitation, you're going to become free. Graphic artists have this saying that they say that form is liberating, meaning having a limitation, having something to hold yourself on a specific thing, eventually liberates you, makes you free. And I like that. Anyway, the third principle. Now we don't do those two, and they're pretty general. The third is a bit more specifically. The third principle of music theory is voice leading. This is something that is so important, so overlooked. Okay, and it's overlooked because all the theory you find on YouTube, online, etc., comes from the wrong point of view. Let me show you the wrong point of view, and then let me show you why it's the wrong point of view. The wrong point of view is that music is made of chords, and then they have this chord is followed by this chord, is followed by this chord, and you find all those diagrams where you have like a flow chart. Now, yeah, that's the chord followed by this chord, and then you come back to the first chord toward this. Those diagrams are not right. They're not even wrong. I mean, they have no meaning. Okay, there is. You can totally do without them. Okay. The problem is this: that if you think of music as a succession of chords, you think that your ear hears this chord, then hears this chord, and hears this chord. That is not how your ear works. And you may notice that occasionally people put in music some chords that have no sense, they have no name, or they're very difficult to name. You know, like all those threads online, like, what is the name of this chord? What is this chord? Okay, why it works here? It's out of the key, there is no meaning why it works. It works because of voice leading. That is this principle that tells you why all chords work and why other things that are not even chords work anyway. This principle is that chords are made of notes, right? At least 3 notes. When you play 2 chords in a row, you're playing at least 3 notes here and at least 3 notes there. The voice leading principle tells you that. Yes, it is important how those notes sound together, but it is more important that those notes connect horizontally, meaning that the top note should be closed, the middle note should be closed, and the bottom note should be closed for all those chords. Okay, I'm going to show this in a second. Okay, in detail. If you make all those lines, so you make the lines of the notes, the horizontal line of the notes, make sense, meaning that they're close by, they make a melodic sense. If you can sing them, they make sense. Then you can get away with murder with the notes of the chords. You don't even have to have consonants. You don't have to have triads. You can have anything, and it will still works because your ear hears horizontally. It hears those melody on top of each other more than it hears the chord. Okay, so let's make an example here. I have a C major chord here. Actually, let me play it here. I have a C major chord here, C, G, right? And let's say my chord progression is C, F, G. Okay, I'm not going any complex here, okay? I mean, I could play C, F, G. Right, that's C major, C, G, F major, F, A, C, G major, G, B, D, and C major. But that sounds very meh, right? Okay. It would be better to think this way. Think of the notes in C major, C, E, G. Okay, and actually, you know what? Let me do that. Let's think of the notes in C major. The notes in C major are C, E, and G, right? The notes in F major are F, A, and C, right? But notice that there's a C in common. So it would be better to play the C down here so that these notes, the C note in the C chord and the C note in the F chord, are actually the same note. Okay, I'm going to play this way in a moment. Now, you notice also that the F is close to E and the A is close to G. So it would be better to play F, not as F, A, C, but C, F, A, so that any one of those notes move the least possible amount. So, when I do that, I'll have C, E, G, and then C, F, A, as opposed to, we can agree or disagree, but I think this sounds better. Or if anything, it sounds more natural. Okay.
It sounds smooth. It sounds smoother for sure. We can say it sounds smoother, regardless of what people agree, what they like better. For sure, it's smoother.
Let's say that. With those 2 chords that are very simple and very connected, you can do it either way. This one sounds smoother. I can do the same later with B, and what I find is that I could play B this way, G, and play G this way, B, D, G. That would be a good way to play the G chord. So I'll have C major, F major, G major, C major, as opposed to okay. And this way sounds smoother. Now again, with chords this simple, 1-4-5 in a major scale, either way will sound good. The moment you start introducing more complex chords, this idea of keeping those notes closed helps you doing literally anything you want. Okay? Let's say I start from this C major. What I'm doing now is just I'm taking down some notes whenever I feel like. I'm moving one note down occasionally by 1 fret or 2. I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay, and I can go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Half of what I played here are not even recognized chords. I mean, you can always find a name for them. We can always go in like this is B flat with a sharp 11 without the root or stuff like that. We can always, okay? And by the way, you've seen the transcription down here, so if you want to replicate, do it. But you don't have to replicate what I did, because the only thing I did was starting from a chord and then picking one of those notes, any one of those notes, and moving it down by a fret or two. And then later, I get that shape, and from that shape, I take down one of the notes by a fret or two. And I keep going. I'm leading those voices. I don't even care what are the chords, but you like the piece, or at least you understand the piece. It doesn't sound like random notes, because your ear is hearing all those lines going down together. And so it makes sense. If you have to analyze this with traditional academic theory and give name to everything, then you're going to have augmented sixth chord in a different, in a dominant key or stuff like that. And even, I mean, you could do that, and it will give you exactly zero information on what's going on. Right?
Yeah, and if you would have taken, I won't ask you to do it, but because you probably don't even remember what you played because you were improvising it, but if you were to take all of those different little chord voicings that you just created and improvised and put them as block chords, as, starting on the root everywhere, root position, I mean, it would be nonsense. It would be ridiculous. It wouldn't sound very good at all. It works because you're using voice leading. Without the voice leading, it's garbage. It's nonsense.
Exactly. So the realization here is that all these theory you find online of name this chord, get the chord progression, follow the circle of fifths, do all these, I mean, can have its use later, but it's not as important to your ear. Simple as that, okay? While keeping those notes connected, it's way more important for your subjective feeling that this music makes sense and this music has emotion. So you want to think about the voice leading and keeping those voices connected more than you are thinking if the chord is in key or if the chord is correct, and all these kind of things. Which again means you can get away with murder. If you want to put a strange key in your song, sure, just make sure that you're playing it in a way that the voice are connected, so that every note moves a little bit and not much. And then you can literally play whatever you want, and it will work. Okay, so much for music theory limits you. I just told you play whatever you want. I just told you how to play whatever you want, like keep the notes close to make it work. How's that for freedom?
Great stuff.
Incidentally, guys, if you have questions, write them in the chat or the comments, etc., because we are reading them and we are checking them. Mm-hmm. Good. The next principle. The next principle is what I call the principle of correspondence. Okay? And parts of this principle have been called in different way, like chord tone soloing or harmonization, but basically the idea is this. Most of music you like, it's made by chords plus a melody. So some notes played in the background and one line on top that you perceive as the melody. If a note is in the chord progression, it will work good in the melody, work well in the melody. If a note is in the melody, it will work well in the chord progression. So you are going to pick your chords so that they contain that note in the melody. You don't have to do this, because you can have a melody and a chord progression that are not connected this way. But when you connect, it pretty much works every time. Okay? As long as you respect the voice leading in the chord progression. Again, that's why the voice leading comes first. So, you have a chord progression, and you don't know what to play on top. Just look at what notes are played in the chord progression and hit those, which this boils down usually to play the note of the chords. This works regardless of the chord progression. So why I'm saying that? Because sometimes you get chord progressions that have one foreign chord. Okay, I don't know. You have something like you can have. Let me. Okay, so this is generally in B minor. And then you have this foreign chord here. Now, what most people will do is sit down and like, okay, this chord is a C9, okay? What scale it can come from, or what kind of substitution it is, or what, and they're like, wait. That's not wrong, but if your aim is just to improvise over this, so but is giving you this chord progression, you have to play a solo over this, literally the only thing you need to know is what are the notes in this chord, and then you can, you've only, it's a ninth chord. So yeah, I'm playing 4 notes, but there are 5 notes, C, D, C, E, G, B flat, and D. So you have 5 notes you can play over this chord, and they will all work because they're in the chord, okay? So if you are improvising a solo, the only thing you need to do is to play one or more of those notes. Forget about find the scale, forget about do the analysis, get using just playing the chord notes when you see them. Because that saves you, okay? Because sometimes you know enough theory to know where a chord comes from. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes the chord is so foreign that there may not even be a theory that explains clearly what goes on in there. The first thing you do is just play what's in the chord. That must work by definition because it's already being played in the chord. Okay, that's the correspondence principle. Okay, so eliminate all this structure of let's analyze the chord progression. You can do that later. It's good. I'm not saying it's not, okay? But first play, hear how it sounds, and sometimes that's enough. Okay, so whenever you have a chord out of key, stop the analysis, just find the notes of the chord and play those. See if it's enough. If it's not enough, then we have to start thinking about what scales may possibly work over that chord, or how to find other notes that work and all this kind of thing. Sure. But that should be the second step, not the first step. That's a big problem I have with all those jazz books about the chord scale system, etc., etc. You are overthinking there. First, hit the notes of the chord. Okay. The beauty is that once you can hit the note of the chord, if you put the scale on top later, you already have 4 or 5 notes out of 7 notes. So you just need to learn 2 extra notes usually. Okay. So might as well learn the notes of the chord first. Okay. Conversely, you have you want to say something, Tomas?
Yeah, just that when you play the arpeggio notes of the chords, and let's say that you had, I think you said you had a 9th chord there, so there's no 11 and there's no 13. You can just try one. Just stick the 11th in there. Just stick the 13th in there. If you don't like how it sounds, raise the 11th, lower the 13th, play a flat 13 instead. It's not going to clash with the basis of the chord because there isn't a 13th, there isn't an 11th. So you can, if you want to play 11, play the 11, 4. If you want to raise it, so you have like more of a Lydian sound, then raise it. So you can either avoid those notes, not play the 11 and the 13, or you can just insert them. If you don't know which one, try one. Try one and see. If you don't like the sound, flat it, sharp it. It's it.
And again, depend on the context. If you are in your room when you're playing, try all the notes. There's no harm in it. Okay, you're not killing anybody. If you are on stage, well, avoid them unless you know how they sound. Okay, so it depends on the context there. Point is, the note of the chord will always sound good. That's it, guaranteed. Okay, they have to, because again, they are in the chord. So conversely, if you have a melody and you want to find the chords under that melody, see what note is playing in the melody in that moment and pick chords that contain that note. One of them will sound better than the other typically, but all of them will work. So that's the correspondence principle. There is typically a correspondence between the notes in the melody and the notes in the chord. This is a rule of thumb principle. Sometimes there are exceptions to that, and there are reasons for exceptions for that. But right now, I would recommend think of it as true and see how far it takes you. Okay? So that was the fourth principle, correspondence principle. Then you have the next one, the fifth principle. Fifth principle, you've heard that, is the principle of consonance and dissonance, or if you want, of tension and release. Okay? All music works by creating tension and then creating release. The tension can be made by intervals like having tension and then release. Okay? It can be created in another way. It can create tension with rhythm, tension with timbre, can create tension with dynamic, going up and down, etc. But basically, the idea is you want to create something that sounds tense, that sounds unresolved, that sounds dissonant. And then later, you want to go into something that sounds consonant. And again, it's a very general principle. It can be applied in many ways depending on the style. The take-home message here is this, which is important. You don't have to play consonances all the time. People are like, okay, what note sounds good? Those are the consonances. You don't have to play consonances all the time. You can totally play the wrong note, which is the dissonance. Okay, you can totally play that. As long as later you find a way to resolve that dissonance. So if you are on a major chord and you want to play a tension like this, let me play this. That's a C major 7 chord. You want to play the sharp 4, sharp 11, whatever, which is a tension. You can, as long as you resolve it at a certain point. And then you can go on with other chords. Dissonance is not bad. Dissonance is drama. Dissonance is movement. Dissonance is what keeps the song moving forward. And if you always if you always avoid the dissonance, your music will sound boring. So now, please compare what I'm telling you right now with the standard advice in music theory, which is find what are the right notes and play those. Okay? It's actually exactly the opposite. Find out what are the right notes. Then find out what are the wrong notes. Then play the wrong notes before the right notes so that it sounds like you're moving the thing forward. And now, of course, that's the general advice. Then the exact kind of dissonance you can get away with in different style, it's different because some style are more tolerant of dissonance or tolerant of dissonance in specific situation. If you play jazz, practically everything goes. If you play country, you have kind of a less of an elbow room there, okay, but you can still get away with a lot of different dissonances, okay? So the thing is consonance and dissonance. You can use both. You have to use both. They're both legit. So what's left for you to do? You have to start recognizing which one is consonant and which one consonance and which one is dissonance. Okay? You have to recognize when a note is in the chord or not, or when a note conflicts with another note or not. That's the most important thing. That is something that you don't have when you start. I mean, at some level, your ear gets that, but consciously you cannot name it, or you occasionally name the wrong thing. Okay? And I think that should be the first goal of ear training, helping you, or one of the first at least, helping you distinguishing between consonant chords and intervals, etc., and dissonant chords and intervals, etc. Before they teach you this, that's a fifth, that's a second, that's a fourth, that's a flat 7. Just this is consonance, this is dissonant. This is consonant, this is dissonant. That would be more useful. Okay? Because people seem to miss that. Okay? Since we are here, okay. This will be the beginning of ear training. Okay? Now, there are many good ways of doing ear training and many bad ways of doing ear training. Okay. And lots of people are very frustrated with their ear and very frustrated with ear training. Let me tell you one thing, it's not your fault. There are people on YouTube doing videos with title like ear training for beginners, and they give exercises that actually I know experts cannot do. So just you know. Okay. I mean, I took one of those beginner exercises and I gave it to a couple of professional musicians I know who have a very good ear, and they're like, "Ooh, that's hard." Oh, that's built as an exercise for beginners. Oh no, it can't be. It's impossible. Okay. So that's one thing. Second, people got it completely the wrong way. You know, all those apps that play intervals to you and you have to recognize what intervals it is. So the app plays and you're supposed to go major third, and then it plays, and then you're supposed to go minor sixth, and then you play something else. And now it's easy because, of course, I have the transcription. But those apps are completely useless. You will use those apps. You will go through a few months where you're learning this. You're going to get frustrated because some intervals are hard to distinguish from each other, and then they're all out of context, played with random notes. But eventually, if you stick to it, everybody will eventually get 100% score. Because eventually you learn. There are only 12 intervals, okay? So eventually you will learn. You will learn in the hardest possible way, okay, with all the pain you have, but you will. And then after a few months, you're like, I have a good ear. And then you go and try to transcribe an actual song, and you will realize that you're not stronger. Transcribing the song, it's as hard as it was before, okay? Because nobody can be fast enough, I mean, unless you've trained for immense amount of time, fast enough to go to transcribe a melody only thinking this note from this note is this interval, this note from this note is this interval, this note from this note is this interval. It's too many intervals. And then good luck doing the chords. Okay, so just say that's not the right way to go at ear training at all. Okay, don't do that. If you need help, ask Tom, ask me, ask other people, okay? But find somebody who can actually teach ear training the proper way, because it saves you years and years of pain, okay? And honestly, it's not as hard. I think people online on YouTube, etc., they're actually making it way harder than it should be, but with the stupid apps.
Yeah, there are also many people are teaching, they're trying to teach this in the way that they learned it in university, which was starting with the intervals. I mean, it couldn't be a worse way to approach ear training for the exact reason you said. Let's assume you practice, you master all the intervals, which will take a long time. Then you want to use that stuff. You can't, because all the intervals that you learned were isolated out of context. And now you're trying to use the thing that you have now hopefully practiced and mastered, and you're trying to use it in context, and it's very difficult. So you're not coming at it from the right angle to do that, transcribe by ear, to use your ear. It takes too much time, even after you've got the intervals down for the exact reasons you've described. It blows my mind that even in universities, music schools, it's still taught that way. Unbelievable. I was taught that way in university. At the time, I just thought, well, that's just how it is. Well, now I know that way sucks. Doesn't work well at all.
Yeah, they try to teach me that way too. And then after a couple of weeks, I'm like, maybe I'm not cut out to be a musician. Because I just can't. It made no sense at all. I was never able to do a freaking dictation with that system. I mean, it was incredibly frustrating. Now I could, but not that way. Anyway, awesome. It's just I don't know who came up with it, but it's not a good. Listen, I don't know about literally everybody on the face of this planet, okay? So maybe for a tiny minority of people, that system actually works. But literally everyone I talk with, that system doesn't work for them. And I talk with a lot of people. So that's it. I think it just doesn't work.
It's very inefficient. It to the extent that it can work, it's at least very inefficient.
Yes.
So, doctor, you've shared some awesome stuff with everyone today. Appreciate that. Went into a lot of great detail. Um, I think you have something that maybe you'd like to share.
Yes, please. You have the thing. Thank you. So this it's a free ebook that you guys can get at this link. Okay, and it teaches you one of the most important things that you can learn to understand your guitar. It teaches you where are the notes on your guitar. It teaches you if that this is a D, that this is a C, that this is a B, etc. And especially it teaches you how to remember where those notes are. Okay, because if you think about it, learning the notes on your fretboard looks like an impossible thing. I mean, how much time you have to sit down and memorize those notes is going to be long and painful. It's not, if you know how to do it. If you follow the exercises in this ebook, everything is easy. You just follow the exercises in there. As I tend to tell you, the learning curve is very gentle. And in a few weeks of time, you will start just seeing where the notes are. You will just know, as if you always knew, as if it's the most natural thing in the world, as if somebody puts stickers on top and you can just read the notes. You will just learn them. There is literally no conscious memorization involved. You just need to do some exercises, and automatically the whole thing gets memorized for you. And best part of it, you need to invest 5 minutes a day. And I actually recommend that you don't invest more. Just 5 minutes a day of doing those exercises. In the ebook, I'm showing you the exercise, and there are videos with me performing the exercise so you can see exactly what I'm doing, and I'm telling you exactly how I'm thinking. It works for everybody who does the exercise. And it's completely free.
That's the best part. Free is good. People like free. I found that out. I like free sometimes. So I also have something for you guys, which is free as well. It's called Guitar Mastery Decoded. And this is a free ebook that you guys can check out and you can download right now. And there's a lot of great stuff in there. One of the things that you will see and get is a 9-step video checklist for bulletproof guitar technique. And it's one of the things that's helped a lot of my students get to the point where their guitar speed is really high and it starts to feel easier for them as they go through and have utilized stuff in this checklist. In addition, you'll also see how to cram hours and hours of guitar playing progress into small 20 to 30 minute guitar practice sessions and not have your brain explode when you're practicing. It's a different way to think about practicing, and it's a different way to think while you're practicing. And a lot of students that have gotten some really great results from following that. It's a short, ebook. It's maybe 30 something pages, I think, maybe 40 pages, but there's a lot of great stuff in there that will help you, with your guitar playing and overall musicianship. Check it out. It's totally free at the link you see. tomhess.net/guitar mastery decoded. So, Dr. Zillio, thank you for hanging out here today and sharing all the great stuff. And great to have everybody here live with us as well. Take care, everybody. We'll see you guys next time.